Hello again. Thank you for being patient and waiting for my next video to come out. This has been a very, very long and exhausting journey, but we're going to dive into tilling our soil, cultivating our soil. And that involves moving, pushing through, getting all the debris out that we no longer need, all the debris that doesn't serve us anymore, out of our soil. And that's what tilling or cultivating means. And from that, we get the word cult. So what does that mean on a more in-depth level of who we are as human beings as we grow and evolve through that life? It's a heavier look at what lies beneath, what lies in the shadows, if you will. You know, some things grow there that we don't like and we don't know where they came from. We have no concept of how this came to be in our lives. And it really gets back to we're not taught that what we pick up in life can become a part of us that we never intended. All these thoughts, these ideas, people's energy, their thoughts and beliefs about their reality that are forced upon us without us even knowing it, because we're not taught about it. So when it comes down to cultivating your soil and understanding how you want your life to grow and to proceed and to move forward, you have to look at those things. So when I was going through this and analyzing all this different information about cults, how they're formed, what they operate under, one of the biggest alarm bells for me is when you're watching these documentaries and understanding how the outer world sees these people coming into this group and then developing these nasty habits. Excuse me, I'm just gonna... Come on! Hop, hop! No? Yoda! Are you coming? Come on, hop, hops! Zeus, come! Come on! Go away! Hi. Zeus is my older fellow, just a little gentle. So, oh God, you can't see them. That's not nice, is it? So this is Yoda. He's a little Shih Tzu. And I have to be really gentle with him. He's getting old. Good boy. This is Zeus. Okay, so back to the cultivation of the soil. Understanding how this actually happened. What were these people thinking? Because the documentaries just skip right over that part. And all of a sudden, this is a severely destructive force in our society. And we're like, what? I don't understand. And we don't, because these documentaries do not dive deep enough. Stephanie Harrow does a brilliant job of diving deep into like the Jim Jones cult. And those 917 people, from my understanding, a lot of them did drink the cyanide Kool-Aid, and the ones who refused were shot. So understanding how 917 people signed up for their own demise. Guess what, kids? It wasn't like that in the beginning, and that's what we need to really look at. When you go back to the origins of any cult, whether it be even the most disturbing of which is the cult of euthanasia, or the Church of Euthanasia, I believe they call it, which is, their motto is save the planet, kill yourself. even they preach that they have the utmost concerns of the planet at their foresight, which is population control in essence. So you don't really understand where they're coming from with the loss of life part, but their intentions to them are very good. And believe it or not, there are people who will sign up for those good intentions. So let's look at the well-known Jim Jones cult thing. These people started off doing amazing work. Amazing work. And back before Jim Jones met a figure called Father Divine, which also had a cult following, he would take the money that people gave him and give it back to the community. He would take homeless drug addicts off the streets, rehabilitate them, and put them into college to become lawyers for his cult, of course. But nonetheless, if you were an outsider looking at this progress being made, you'd be like, wow, this is actual change. This is moving my community where I live into a much better state. Taking homeless people off the street and making them lawyers, I don't see how you could get more amazing than that. So this is where it all starts. This is where we begin to understand how it is that people signed up for this. And that's the main part that any mainstream media documentary is completely skipping over. And so we're left with the assumption that these are just batshit crazy people who sorry. So we're left with the concept that these people are just out of it to begin with, and they're on the fringe of societies, and we couldn't possibly, there's no way that we would ever conceive of the notion of signing up for a cult. That's what we tell ourselves. And guess what, kids? That's exactly how you find yourself in a cult. That's exactly the gateway that everybody needs for you to say, I'm not in a cult. I'm not that stupid. I would never, ever, under any circumstances, sign up for a cult. This group that I have going over here, they do amazing work for the community. Just look. You hear it time and time again when these members are interviewed. I am doing good for myself, for my family, for the community, and even the world at large. They actually believe this. And in some small fraction, that might have been true in the beginning. This might have actually been the case at the beginning, but then there's certain progress that accumulates itself through this idealized state that we give these leaders, that somehow they have channeled or invoked or embody some sort of deity that is to be worshipped. And the power of preaching through a religious text sometimes overwhelms people. And you can get that from basically anywhere. You can get that from anything that you resonate with, whether it be Buddhism, Islamic beliefs, Judaism, Christianity, wherever it is that your root system lies is where you're gonna hone into. And any of these particular sects of beliefs can be taken for granted, taken advantage of, manipulated in very severe ways. And so understanding that we need to really look at that, even though these things may speak to some little fraction of ourselves that says, oh, you know what, that's touching a point. I think we could really, dive into that and maybe do something with it. You need to check yourself. And the most important part that I found, the common denominator in all of this, is accountability. We do not hold the leaders accountable because we see them, or they're behaving in such a way that they're unapproachable. We can't ask them questions. You see this through Jim Jones. You see this through L. Ron Hubbard. You cannot question their works because they have some sort of direct connect to the divine or the deity, alien, whatever it is. They have that direct connect that you don't, that you are not allowed to have, that you are forbidden from. You have to go through them. The only way through salvation is through this specific leader, person, deity, whatever it is. And so when that happens, there's a separation, there's a distancing. And so the only way for you to bridge that separation is to get closer to the leader, to follow directions, to perform tasks that you wouldn't normally. And with an impressionable group of people, specifically younger, they get suggestions. They get bombarded with pamphlets or bulletins or broadcastings that, this is really how you should do it. And sometimes it's a direct, you must. Sometimes it is just a mere suggestion or just a pattern of words that gets planted as a seed in these people's minds of, oh, this is, leader says we have to do this, so we got to do this. And so there's no accountability. No one is allowed to question. And when that happens, when you get shut down, that's your immediate red flag. I need to go. This is not for me. Because if I'm not allowed to question, if I'm not allowed to analyze, if I'm not allowed to have a better understanding of my values, of my core belief system, then there's something wrong. Because if I'm not allowed to get to the core of my belief system, that's kind of you saying, I'm not allowed to know who I am. I'm not allowed to really understand my values, and more importantly, because of my values, what my purpose here is. What am I striving for? What am I achieving? What is my hero's journey? When we are disallowed from that, we become what my loving brother tried to tell me was rotten seeds in the soil. And it's a stagnant way of living. And there's a lot of people out there that want to create stagnance so that they feel superior, if you will, so that the mass population does not come to understand what their journey is, what their purpose here is, how they can grow and learn and thrive through this life, and then turn around and tell others their story of how they got to that point in their life. Not to become cult leaders, but to just say, here's what I went through, here's what I had to deal with, here's the challenges I overcame. And basically, when you do that for people, you're giving them permission to do the same for themselves. It's when the leader takes away that permission from you to do the same for yourself. And that's where we find the cults developing. And that's where we're so eager to give our responsibilities away to someone else to deal with. We are giving away our power to something we've been told we're too ignorant to understand. And that's also a common denominator, is that you're too ignorant to understand. But I've been given all the answers because I have a direct connect. So in processing through this and coming to a greater understanding, it's about accountability. It's all across the board. It's about accountability. It's about being accountable to yourself, does this resonate with my values? Is this something really serving the community, or is this serving the leader? And then the leader also has a responsibility to, more so, to hold themselves to a higher standard. Is this really serving not only myself, but the community and the individuals involved? And oftentimes the answer is a resounding no. You can see a clear disconnect from where the leader has all of the power, control, and mostly the responsibility. Because when you join a cult and you're heavily indoctrinated, you're giving this person all of your resources. You quit your job. You don't function in what we would call society as a whole in any way, shape, or form. You're cut off completely. And that's kind of the reverse of what a productive way of living would be. So when you're cut off from society, who's going to witness the good that you're doing? No one. Which means if no one's supposed to be witnessing, what's really going on there? So when your community decides to go off and hide in the shadows, you're probably doing some not okay stuff. So the breakdown of kind of what I want to get, and there's a great, it's on Netflix and it's free on YouTube, and it's all about cults. I'll see if I can figure out how to put the link in below. But if you go to Netflix, or if you even just punch in cults in your YouTube search bar and you push go, you'll find out some really interesting stuff, or not. So YouTube is a pretty fair source for this. I have a couple different books that I resourced for this, but the grand scheme of it, I was just looking for an overall arching theme, which is accountability, and then how to negate this, how to prevent yourself from being a cult leader, which the online communities that I find often have the same taste to them, the same familiar patterns, if you will. And I think this was important for me as well, starting this YouTube channel. If it grows, if it doesn't, I very much want to keep myself in check on this, because this is going to become putting out good energy. So in this climate, which we are living today, it's a breeding ground for these types of thoughts and ideas, because people are losing faith in other cults, if you will. People are losing belief in other cults. And I know I kind of stuck to the religious part of it, but cult doesn't always have to have a religious connotation to it. A cult can be a political belief. A cult can be an overlord of any sort. So you really got to start looking at that and how you're adhering yourself to these cult beliefs in a much broader scale, other than just religion, other than just these fringe groups that have these radical ideas. And when you begin to understand that, when you begin to process through it, don't get disheartened, don't get afraid, don't give in to that, don't shut down. It's okay to sit and process with it and mill through it, and I did. I took some time because I needed it to process through this, because it is a little overwhelming and it can get a little intimidating, but you understand that you are born with your own sovereign power, with your own knowledge of whatever deity you want to conceive of, whatever power, source, universe, yada, yada, yada. You're born with that. And if you can hold on to that and remember that, these things don't seem so overwhelming. They don't seem so all-encompassing and powerful. And I don't, because we're time, I don't want to direct anybody in a specific direction here. You need to, this is a very individualized, personal journey. You have to discover that for yourself. All I'm doing is inviting you to go on that adventure and create your own hero story. That's all I'm doing. This is just an invitation. It's not a, you have to do it this way. This is how it looks. This is how you should act. That's a big no-no. You find out what's on the inside and then you move forward from there. Sure, there's other people out there with similar ideas that can kind of give you more guidelines and a structured way to kind of go about that. But I suggest that you just sample out different ways to do it. I would not, under any circumstances, adhere yourself to one way and one way only. That's where it gets dangerous. That's where it can be harmful. That's where things get toxic. And sometimes if you immerse yourself too much, you can find yourself in a situation where turning back is going to be extremely difficult. And I'm guilty of this too. I have bought some books from particular people, authors that could be definitely described as cult leaders. I am guilty of it. The difference is that I did not adhere to one specific way, idea, similarity, to focusing all of my thoughts, attention, energy on this one specific way, person, leader, whatever. And that's the trick to it, is if you find yourself in that, if you are in a group of people and say you're going through something like a 30-day challenge and you begin to pick up some red flags, like, the structure is appreciated. It really helps you focus in on finding your values, finding your path, goals, whatever. That's really imperative. But then you start to look at more specifically the content that they're putting out kind of in between this. And you see a little bit of, ooh, that was kind of awkward. Like, what was the leader's intention in putting out that particular video that kind of had a little bit of a sexual orientation to it? Not so okay with this, but let's keep going because I'm not immersed in anything. I have not devoted myself to Jack Dilly Squad at this point. So you continue on and you just explore. That's all you're doing. You're not beating yourself up for anything. You're just exploring. And then they bring up how this specific person that existed is a genius. Just, oh my gosh, just a genius. And this man that is a genius also is well known for raping his own daughter. And it's like, maybe, appreciate the man's work, but let's not go to the extent that we uplift this person. And that's really where people are going to get pissed off when I tell them it's okay to assess the work, to assess the research, and do dive in to the thoughts and concepts that others bring to the table. Worshiping the person themselves is where you really, really get into dangerous territory. Worship of another person rather than just a gratitude for the ideas and concept, because we are very much a culture of, I can't say that, that's not good, I have to put this in another way. My brain is the bestest, and I'm going to put it on the table and make you all look at it, and you have to bow down and praise it. We are very much a culture of that. And we get into dangerous territory when we take the focus away from the actual work and progress that's been made by that person and worship just the person instead of their ideas and concepts. Because we're all on a journey. We all will come up with great ideas. We all do, whether we know it or not, whether we'll admit it to ourselves or not. We all have done something amazing and wonderful in our lives, probably repeatedly, and we won't give ourselves credit for it. We refuse to see that. And that's us keeping humble, but at the same time, recognizing that whether you would want to admit this came from source, this idea came from source, or we're just all on this journey, learning, growing, and coming up with better ways to live our lives, whatever it is. What I'm saying is refrain from praising the human, the man, and praise the work. Give them a pat on the back. That's okay. But do not put them up on a pedestal, because anybody who's done any research on cluster Bs, narcissists, all the way through psychopaths, putting somebody on a pedestal is a recipe for disaster. Period. The end. Period. The end. Somebody's on a pedestal, it's going to go bad. Period. The end. They have to come down. That's all there is to it. So, staying humble through this, recognizing that, humans that are tapping into this knowledge, this wisdom, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, yes, that's amazing, amazing work. But do we need to fall down and worship? No. Do we need to make those people responsible for us? No. No. We are all responsible for ourselves. Period. The end. I'm not responsible for you. You're not responsible for me. However, we do need to hold each other accountable. So if I come across a fact on the internets that's not true at all, please leave it in the comment. If I say something that's like, you're like, that's really making me uncomfortable, leave it in the comments. And it could be me, or it could be you just going, I've come across this belief before and I don't like it. Or I come across this idea, fact, whatever it is. So when we're going through this cultivating, we pick out the rocks and the debris that no longer serves. And we come to an understanding that we're all on the same level of soil here. We're not lifting somebody else up. We're not lifting ourselves up above. I'm not lifting me up. You're not lifting me up. Please don't. Please don't. It's not a competition of who's the bestest or who's the greatest. I know we like to live in that society. We all have value. We all have a purpose here. We all have our own individual gifts to bring to this situation, to this life. We don't need to be lifting somebody up because their gift happens to resonate with more people. I don't know how to fix a car, but somebody else there can take one pop of my hood and be like, ting, 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 ting. These are all the things. And I'm just standing there dumbfounded, completely amazed that out of all these cords and metal and plastic and rubber, they're like, I'm like, oh, that's cool. So if we can get away from the pedestal and just pinpoint on all these wonderful, amazing things that we hold individually inside of ourselves and be grateful for that, period, the end, that's all we need to do. Okay, I digress. But that's probably the most important reason and the one hurdle that was keeping me from doing more videos, because I knew that this is detrimental in today's climate, that we understand this concept. And I probably revisit it every single year around this time when we are cultivating the soil that we've just come up from during the seasonal patterns of dying and rebirth, coming up and bringing what has been a processing of shadow work through the winter. And now we're tilling through that soil and getting out all the things that are like, I don't like this. This isn't a good idea. And making room for new seeds to be planted and grow. And we really do need to keep in mind what those seeds are. We can't just willy-nilly this. We have to plan things out. What are our goals? What do we value? What do we want to cultivate in our life? What do we want to come up from this soil? And every year there's going to be, seeds from weeds that you didn't get soon enough next year. And they're going to pop up. And you're going to be like, oh, dang, I thought I had that one. Pull it out. Get the shovel if you need to. But get it out. That's the wonderful meditating power of weeding, is you pull up what no longer serves. You're sucking energy away from the things that I want to grow. You're sucking energy away from my food. So bye. Just pull it up. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up that this happened. Some seeds can grow or wait dormant in the soil for up to 60 to 90 years. So it might not even be your weed. Just get it out of there. Okay? So what we need to remember when we're dealing with cults is the understanding of kind of what you can look for. So, and this is what makes the breeding ground for cults so fertile at the moment. We are going through a crisis, if you will, kind of, a way of kind of, we're in it. So, number one, the person has to have a vulnerable state. They have to be at a crossroads. Now, some people see this as a great travesty, and I understand that, and I sympathize with that, and I do not want to take away from that. But what I want to inspire you with today, because everybody's looking at this like doom and gloom, and it's some sort of fear-mongering porn that I'm really getting frustrated with. When you find a source of fear porn, shut it down. Yes, look at the reality, but just because that person is living in a state of fear and panic does not mean you need to. You need to keep that in check. Period. The end. Keep it in check. Your fear will end up dictating your life, and there will be a lot of weeds in your garden that you never intended to plant, but planted anyway because you were busy listening to the seeds drifting over into your soil without your permission, quote unquote, without your knowing, without your understanding that what you put in comes out all the way through your life. What you put in comes out. Remember that. So it's very important to kind of, as tempting as it is, because you want the info, you want the truth, you want the reality of the situation. When they're dumping all of the fear on top of your salad and then going, sorry about the shit I just gave you, but there's no more processing to do after that point. There's no more growth to be had here. There's no more